All righty. Well, good afternoon and welcome to Circle Healing Network. And I've got an exciting show today. At least I'm thrilled about it because I like this kind of material. And my guest today is Barry Littleton, who the fact that we're broadcasting right now is an act of God. God got involved in this because between Barry and I trying to catch up with each other last year through the holidays and then the beginning of the year, and then technology was king yesterday because we could not get on any kind of way, but we've overcome that today. So Barry is on his cell phone. He's discovered that he has some computer stuff that he's going to repair, but as we all get sick of these machines because, we're dependent upon them. And then right when you need them, something happens. But anyhow, we have prevailed. And so we have Barry here today. And today the show is going to talk about one of my favorite subjects, which is experiencers and disclosure. What's really going on here with the alien contact and known as ETs, extraterrestrials, off-planetary life beings and what have you. And Barry is going to share with us his story, his experiences. He's came in awakened, and I like that because I always say that I've come here awakened. I don't remember a point at which I awakened. So, and Barry, he came here remembering his past life experiences, and actually had contact at a really early age. I mean, you just can go all the way back to a lot of your early contact. So I thank everyone for choosing to look at our show today, and please hang in there with us. You won't be disappointed with Barry's story and a lot of it we're going to be talking about. So if you like UFOs and contact and off-world phenomenons, then this is a show for you today. So anyway, Barry, thanks a lot. Thank you for coming on and persevering.
Hello. Thank you, Robin. I appreciate you. Thank you very much.
Definitely.
It's nice to be here. Thank you for having me.
Good. Thanks a lot. So, and I came across Barry on Kelly's show, Kelly and the Raw. I look at her show a lot and I love her. I've never met nor have I spoken with her, but I just like her energy. And I remember seeing a couple of shows and I'm like, okay, I got to reach out to him because I really like your energy and I like the story and I love your laugh. So that right there alone got me. But so why don't you go ahead and jump in and just start sharing, from the beginning, Barry.
All right. Like you had mentioned, I was born and awake, at a very young age. I was having things we call past life memories. And, it very much started conflicting with things you're learning about in elementary school, especially. They give you a certain kind of history there that is not the things I was remembering from the past, from way, way back in the past. Okay, so things kind of started from there. And at a very young age, I think as a lot of us do, we're kind of born awake. And the more we're around people, we kind of start getting programmed to a degree. Our perception starts getting molded to where we can deal with the third dimensional world better. But some of us, our third eye doesn't close. So I could see other beings, and then I started having what we would call extraterrestrial contact or interdimensional contact at a very young age. Things like waking up not in my bed at night or being in a school working with objects and things like that. You know what I mean? That were definitely tangible for me, but I couldn't prove them to anyone else. So I didn't talk about it. You know what I mean? Or some of the strange people I would encounter sometimes, that seemed to disappear when the adults would come around. You know what I mean? Things like that, but I wouldn't relay that because it makes you question your own sanity to a certain degree. But another thing I had was telepathy also. And a lot of people have that and they just learn how to shut it off. I wasn't able to do that. So that, makes you really uncomfortable with others to a certain degree, if that makes sense.
It does.
Not that you can read everything in a person's mind, but some of the things on the surface come off very clearly. And if you learn how to read body language, like body gesture clusters, they come in clusters. I mean, micro expressions of the face, it really gives people away between that and telepathy. So it can make you uncomfortable with others, if that makes sense.
Yeah, it does.
Yeah. So that would be kind of how things came out to be as far as contact for me. But as a child, most of the contact I had, I couldn't prove as real as it was, and there were facts that were definitely relating to this was real. And when something happens in your waking consciousness, you know it. All right. But nothing bad was happening to me. All right. But yet I couldn't prove it, so I started requesting for a more tangible contact. Meaning, I started projecting my telepathy. I tried to manifest the encounters itself. That didn't always work,
Uh-huh.
but yeah, but when I was younger, I mean, especially the time that like ET came out and stuff like that, I was pretty young then. I was having
Yeah.
contact, shortwave radio. I tried to do that. I mean, I tried everything. My father thought I was out of my mind. You know what I was doing, disassemble thing like that with the telescopes and everything. But nothing happened. All right. In fact, the more I reached out like that, it seemed like the contact experiences themselves diminished. So, until I got older, around
Mm-hmm.
the time I was about 18, all right, 19, and they became physical, like I requested. But it's years later, all right. And then when this happens, I start having these encounters in waking consciousness with somebody else with me, but we're seeing these ships, and suddenly you look up after witnessing these ships, you're missing of hours of time.
Mm-hmm.
Well, that happened 4 times to me, 3 times with somebody else, but that is a total of about 21 hours of missing time. That's a lot. And I tried everything. I mean, I tried meditation. That was how these encounters happened was very positive. And although there was missing time, I didn't feel anything bad had happened to me at all. You know, just the energy that was residual after the encounters themselves was proof of that. And it was always a love type of energy too. But
Right.
nonetheless, despite trying to meditate, trying to learn self hypnosis, trying all these different techniques, I was unable to regain these memories of lost time. I could just see flashes of things. And that was a bit unsettling, but it took me further into wanting to.
No, I was going to just ask you real quick because I want you to continue with your string of consciousness there. But it hit me that one of the things that you were saying just then about how you had the early contact and you knew things were happening, but it wasn't concrete or tangible enough, so you really couldn't prove it. And then there was the more you went after it, the more elusive it became. And then it was a large space of time before you actually had physical contact again that you were at least conscious of. And so, but that seems to be a familiar pattern too. When I listen to other people tell, their other experiencers tell their stories, somewhere between being really young and those teen years back into young adult, it seems like there's always this period of time where there was a loss of contact or things fell off. I've just noticed that as a pattern. And I was just wondering if you've thought about that as a pattern and what that may have been all about.
Yeah, I would say it's kind of our maturation chamber or maturation cycle, kind of. Um, for me, I'm pretty sure that they were attempting to contact me when I was just in the crib, even. It goes that far back.
Mm-hmm.
But as we get older, and I think like, it can involve some things like, everybody else. I wanted to kick it when I was a teenager. When I was out partying. I was trying to shut off the telepathy, and I
Yeah,
certainly wouldn't try to see any more disincarnate people walking around.
right.
That
Right.
you're definitely not the star of the party when that happens. Let me tell
No, you're
you.
not. You are not on
Let
the
alone,
internet.
I mean, in our culture, honestly, we get dogged out enough if we even watch Star Trek, let
Right,
alone say, "Oh, hey, I've been on a couple of ships, and guess
right,
what? Some of the beings didn't have bodies." That
right.
doesn't.
No, real at all. Not at all. It is
Oh,
not the way to be on the A list. That's for sure.
yeah. Definitely, definitely. Most of say is, "Oh, he high," or something
Yeah,
like
or
that.
something like that.
Yeah.
Yeah, or like whatever you got, man. I want some of that. That's whack. You know what I mean? It's like,
But I'll tell you, but the very actually stigma of that though was definitely enough to make me keep my mouth shut by far,
I
and that
bet.
would have been until a few years ago anyway. So
Right. So then you said, so in your early 20s, then you lost about 21 hours through these 4 experiences. So
mhm.
what was that? What was that all about?
Well, it was contact, definitely. And what it was actually was happening on a frequency is one thing to remember is that many of these beings can actually bend the space-time continuum to a certain degree. So 4 hours of missing time for me could be weeks in that way. You know what I'm saying? I mean, it
Yeah.
wasn't exactly for me, but nonetheless, it's that and the vibration in which these contacts occurred on made the retention of memory hard, if that
Right.
makes sense.
I
The
do. It
event,
does.
yeah, and that's and that way, and so but like I had told you privately, when I had first this happened, I'm missing this time, and somebody else was with me. And I start really trying to research and find out somebody that's had something similar to this happen, and especially more to the point, somebody black, somebody
Hmm.
ethnic that's had
Right.
experiences like this, and
Hmm.
I couldn't find very many at all, almost none, except for Betty and Barney Hill, who everybody knows about. But they
Yeah.
were a couple. Of Barney was black, and he got jacked over a little bit, the examinations and all that. And I was like, oh no, no, they didn't know they didn't take
No,
my sperm like that.
no, you're looking for the wrong thing here. Yeah. Yeah.
But I mean, it makes me kind of look in the mirror and go, whoa. But I knew that my contact wasn't like that. But nonetheless, I couldn't quite remember it. And the amount of telepathy and telethought, like thought transfer, I hear a lot
Hmm.
of people call it a download now, a download. But really, it's a thought transference, and it's
Wow.
continuous when you're in contact with them.
Hmm.
That
I can
makes
see
sense.
that.
Yeah, yeah. But the retention of the memory of them and the distortion between the dimensions. Like I will say this, some of these craft that I was on, the outside and the inside are not in the same dimension. So the outside of the craft is here in our third dimension, but the inside is not. Some of the
Oh,
inside, it's almost like a Doctor Who thing. Some of them are a little larger on the inside, but some of the rooms are almost moving around you as opposed to you trying to move to them. And the amount of sickness that occurred there for me, and they called it, they said the temporal distortment leads to temporal aphasia. I had to look that up. I've got some psychology education, but that was a bit, what? But really, it is that the sensory aphasia is what happens there because you're out of sync. You know what I'm saying? And not to mention,
right.
there's also a certain mist there, like a too much, maybe too much nitrogen in the air
Yeah.
there. That make me a
Uh-huh.
little more sick a little bit. Yeah, yeah. So I often listen to other experiencers when they say they're walking around those ships and they're just everything's normal. And you probably weren't dealing with the beings I was because the one I was dealing with, I wouldn't have been able to survive there that long, if that makes
Right.
sense.
Yeah. So, I mean, that's really interesting because you and I have talked a couple of times on this, and you're open my thinking a lot too, because my only understanding about any of this has been a lot of the more notable explanations for experiences and what have you like that. And most of them happen in this time continuum. In other words, the way they're explained as if they could have happened in a condensed time period, or they could have happened maybe on ship, but that ship still seems to be in this dimension and sort of like in this time. But you're the first person that I've ever heard the idea that the ship is here in its physical form, and so in some way it became a portal to the inside that was not in this dimension necessarily, or maybe not even physical in as we perceive physicality.
Hmm.
Well, that's wow.
Well, we could take it even a step deeper than that for everybody that's following us. All right. Now, for me, this was being on a multi-dimensional ship. All right. And when I say that, you can think of something like Star Trek that's supposed to have a federation of beings on it, but you've got like
Uh-huh.
Sulu sitting over there, Spock, Kirk. But
Mhm.
this ship was not like that. All right. And this is I'm just
Uh-huh.
describing one. This one in particular has like these eggs in it, these large
Oh,
glass-looking eggs. These
okay.
eggs have a mist inside of them, all right? And then the back of them is of metal, and they're like these nanotubes that go into these walls. And the walls themselves are kind of like a toadstool, a mushroom. So that told me
Right.
immediately that this is organic. That the
So you
inside,
see the walls were like the inside, like how the mushrooms have that, like underneath the cap, that sort of. ventricles to them? Like, is it a toadstool?
Yeah, yeah, toadstool, but even more on the outside, like the top of the cap. You know how the skin is, how
Right. Yeah.
the inside of this was very much like that. That's how I knew it was okay. This is organic, and that's why
Got
there are
you.
no windows in there. You know, but
Oh.
these tubes I talked about, but inside of these tubes were this like a mist, and it makes me
Okay.
think of funny stuff like from King Arthur's Camelot when he talked about the time of the mist. It's kind of
Yeah.
like that. There's a mist in but inside of the mist are these various spherical balls, these glowing orbs, but they're big, kind of, right?
Oh.
One of them's like two of them are blue, one of them's looks kind of yellow, has a little bit of ring around it, almost like Saturn. They're floating around in there. And at first, I keep thinking, okay, this must be a power source. All right, it's a
Hmm.
power source. It has to be. But then I start noticing that a lot of the other beings that are halfway out of phase on this ship, crew members, are observing these eggs also.
Hmm.
Until I got so sick from this environment, from getting smashed with telepathic information, from not being able to breathe correctly, from being dizzy as all get out. All right. Two of these lights emerge from this chamber, and one attaches here to the lower part of my right hand side of my ear, the other one to the left side of my ribs. And they start augmenting my time field, is what I'm kind of saying, what it feels like. That's when I
Oh.
realized, right? These lights inside of these chambers weren't power sources, they were crew members. On top of that,
Here.
they were command officers, but they're
Wow.
corporeal, they're non-physical. So even on that ship that's dimensionally different, they have another containment within there that is more like their dimension. That
Wow.
they're telling me that they're like fish out of water here in our dimension, and they don't come here very often outside of those wormholes and things. So that was something though. But when you experience that waking conscious, like we're talking right now,
Right.
it's very hard to remember it just because you don't have a frame of reference for perception. And number two, uh, you're dizzy as all you're dizzy as all get out. You can't breathe correctly. You're getting telepathically flashed. It doesn't. You know what I mean?
I've been
So
there.
I can't. I thought they might have done something to me, but they didn't. But that difference in frequency was enough that it prohibited me from remembering it. You know what I mean?
Right.
I'm explaining
That's
this.
really wow. I mean, so in other words, or just not in other words, but just me thinking about what you're saying. So the whole idea of how we even perceive beings and how they do even deal in our time. I mean, it's almost unfathomable. This is almost like God. You know what I mean? It's like how you even begin to fathom this stuff, like all these. I mean, because it's like a Rubik's cube almost. It twists it. I mean, you can twist and turn it and do it all these kind of different ways within this one space. It can bend time. It could be in this dimension. It could be in a different dimension. It could be a dimension within a dimension that you're standing there, and you're in one dimension talking to these beings or having this telepathic communication with the beings that are in two or three dimensions away somewhere. I mean, this is like really like nothing I've ever thought about.
Well, something I didn't mention. The only reason I'm speaking out now is because a few years ago I had a horrible car accident, and
Okay.
four catastrophic traumatic brain injuries. And they said I'd have no life memories. I most likely be a vegetable for the rest of my life. All right,
Wow.
in a coma for a while, about almost 2 weeks after the accident itself, and I've died a couple times on the way to the hospital. So,
Mm,
if
mm.
it had not been for that, I wouldn't be talking now. All right,
Wow. Yeah.
God bless me to be cognizant. So, but one thing
Absolutely.
I
I
will
mean, that's incredible in itself.
when
Wow.
I passed, I saw what I call supernatafim, archangels. I think they'd be called. I don't have religion. I'm not a religious man. I just
Hmm.
spirituality. But
Hmm.
we would call them angels, and I think, to be honest with you, that doesn't quite describe them accurately. I think they were more than
Okay.
but they were non corporeal. They were like light corpuscles, thousands of them. All right.
Okay.
These were not like the extraterrestrials I've experienced, all right, or interdimensionals, whatever they are, that did not have bodies. We're dealing all with beings that are non-corporeal, non-physical. You see, you know what I mean?
Mm,
So that way, but
right.
sometimes there may not be all the classifications we think there are, but there's definitely a difference between the angelic forces and what I was dealing as extraterrestrials. But they're all working for the same thing. These beings I was dealing with were, but my contacts were all very positive. I wasn't
Mhm.
abducted. I wasn't being experimented on. I didn't see a bunch of little grays running around. I didn't see 9 feet bipedal crocodiles. My God.
Yeah.
Anyway,
So let me ask you, what do you think, or what is your feeling, your sense of? Well, I got a lot of questions. What is it that you feel that they are even doing? Like what is the point of the contact? Why would these beings who have to put their own self at great risk and being uncomfortable, as you spoke to, that they're like a fish out of water when they come here, to make contact with us, in this case with you? What could have been the purpose, or what is the purpose? What do you feel that is?
well, it's for me, it's connected also to who I was, why I was born with certain past life memories, things that happened in the past here, but also most of my contact with them. I'll be honest, being in the free will zone, I think we're most likely to destroy ourselves, and I don't think they're going to stop it. You see what I'm saying? But they will not allow Earth to be destroyed again. And they showed me again. And I have, now that I've kind of spoke out and I get in some of these circles, a lot of people starting to talk and ask questions. And what have you seen in the future? What disasters? I'm sorry, they have not shown me any disasters really. And I think
Mhm.
because although they can bend space and time, there's several timelines and they don't know. They don't know which one we're taking for sure any more than we do right now. So they don't give
Mhm.
me any predictions of the future. Now they have showed me the past, and they said
Mhm.
certain things happen again. They showed me what looked like the Earth going around the sun looked like a burned out cinder. So that's happened
Mm.
here before, and they said that won't happen again. And most of the energetic uh, exchanges I saw were between the planet and these ships and the energy field and the pure consciousness field. That's what I
Mhm.
saw going on. A lot of what pseudoscience calls orgone energy, and Hindu pranayama yoga calls prana or chi,
Right.
life energy, which is very true because some of these ships I've seen, what they run on is that type of energy. It's a life
Okay.
energy. So,
Wow.
did I
So
answer your question? Or I just go
yeah,
completely
because
off.
I mean, you did, but I still wanted to kind of get a little bit more in there. Like, okay, so what do you think personally for you? Okay, so they don't want to. They're not necessarily going to save us, but they don't want to see the planet destroyed. I've heard that. That seems to be sort of a common theme among people who've experienced, or people who are able to connect with sort of a field of consciousness.
Mhm.
But so, what do you feel your role is in it? Why Barry? Why do you feel that they were connecting? Because you always seem like such a reasonable, rational guy when I've talked to you. You know, like you haven't hung any hats on this idea of being an experiencer, but as much as to help other people deal and cope with it, maybe by coming out, like you said. And also, I know part of you coming out was about, as you've said, I haven't really seen any people of color myself come out about this. And in fact, based on the experiences I was hearing, I thought it was an act from God that we got saved from that piece, because we got swapped up in, we got carried away with the slave ships and all this other stuff. So I figured, well, at least it's one ship that God saved us from. you know, when you think of it like that, because otherwise it seemed like there'd be more people haven't come forward. So I know that was another part of your, coming forward, was because
Yeah,
of that.
yes, and I've spoke out against this before, and I later had to take some of it back because I found out I have experienced Nordic beings that were off world, all right? But when
Hmm.
I was trying to understand more what was happening to me, all right, um, when I start hearing things, it's always the Pleiadians, all right, and it was a couple other groups, but specifically the Pleiadians. And
Yeah,
I
you
joke
told me
with a few people about this. I say it a lot, and they all look like Fabio and Michael Bolton before he cut his hair off, and
Yeah.
Kristen Brinkley. They're all these perfect Caucasian people. You know what I
Right,
mean?
right,
I had
exactly.
encounters, and some of these beings weren't even corporeal. And I'm like, okay, so man, that creates a difference of making someone who has the caricature of being black not wanting to come forward or to even talk about it. And not
Hmm.
to mention our culture is not something we're exactly talking about anyway.
True.
So one of the reasons I wanted to come forward is to get other black experience to come forward and talk, and melanin dominant experiencers, and also people that have experienced black extraterrestrials and melanin dominant ethnic experiencers, as I
Hmm.
have. I'm a group of one that was that, right? So I wanted to know more of that. And in doing that, I will say this: I found out that actually a great deal more of. I thought that really, due to the fact that we're melanin dominant, that
Hmm.
not many black experiencers would have encountered the Greys or abduction or been experimented on genetically and things like that. I thought our melanin kind of protected us from that and from some of the nanotechnologies and different dark technologies they're using. But I
Hmm.
came to find out that wasn't entirely correct. I've talked to several black experiencers, melanin dominant experiencers now, that have been abducted and have dealt with the Greys. I have not, so I figured maybe that was kind of across the board a little bit more. I was
Right,
wrong. So
right.
that
Okay. So, but you feel that, so you feel a part of you coming forward was about sort of kind of connecting with other melanin dominant experiencers, but how does that fit back into, or have we not gotten to the answer about why you think it was you? I mean, I'm stuck on this. I'm sorry. Because I really believe that you serve a purpose. And I can't, as much as you know about, I know you have to sort of have a sense of what that may be. Now, maybe you don't want to share it at this point. You know, we all have things that we feel that we're here to do. It's not time to share that. And I respect that. Um, but I always,
don't worry, it's a bit late for that for me. Don't worry, I'm in the fire now. Don't worry about that. By the way, I'll give a shout out to my sister too. Your name is spelled identical to my sister, so it makes me very comfortable with you.
oh, thank you. I mean, you told me that before. And the spelling of Robin, like it is an unusual spelling with the Y. So, yeah, thanks. Thanks. Hi, sis. I got a shout out to my namesake. So, yeah, but okay. So then, boy, I have so much.
I could take you back there. I didn't really answer joking around. Okay. As far as me, what I can tell you is there's a great deal that's going on right now. This shift that's happening here. Everybody's talking about not just an awakening, but the shift.
Mhm.
Okay, I'm here to help with this. There's a stain on the people I came here with for long. There's been a stain here, and things did not go right here in what we call Type 1 civilization. I have a cognizant memory of some of the technology that existed then, some of the events, and I can help relay that to some people now. But it's about healing also. And I didn't really understand it because, to be quite honest, before my accident, I was never going to say anything to anybody about none of this. Sometimes
Not a word.
the creator will put things in your path, and people, through omens and things, you have to respond and do certain things. But I was
Right.
able to do it most of the other times. Then after I died, I realized I was not supposed to be doing that. You know what I
Oh,
mean?
right.
With this and let people know, because it's happening to so many more people than what I thought, or people that are, awake or waking up, having dreams and contacting dreams and lucid dreams that weren't before, or remembering past lives, or waking up to weird beings in their room and they're trying to dismiss it. And their mate, their husband is sitting there asleep, or their wife is there asleep. You know,
Right.
you and I talked about that seemed to really kind of intrigue you quite a bit in our private conversations. It's what
Uh-huh.
I call target contact. And really,
Yeah.
I kind of got that from Dr. Carla Turner. She was the one that exposed that in around the early 90s. I heard her talking about on Art Bell. Anyway, but target contact is, you can be in a group of like 20 people, and you've got two or three people saying, "Look at that UFO up there, look at it." And the three people can see it, and you've got 15 other people saying, "Where? I don't see anything. You're crazy." But
Right.
it's a conscious thing. It's a frequency thing. They can't perceive it, whether their pineal glands are too closed, or it's not their vibration or whatever. You know what I mean? But they
Right.
can't perceive it. And there's others, and you don't think that. Like for me, I was thinking when I realized I was dealing with an alliance of beings, and over my lifetime, I actually able to piece this together. All right, I
Right.
didn't as an alliance of beings. I didn't think that it would be to that degree. You know, to the what it would be like to interact with inorganic beings, uh,
Mm-hmm.
of different consciousness and the levels of consciousness you deal with. If
Mm-hmm.
that makes sense quite a bit. But
Oh
anyway,
yeah.
so
Yeah, it
that
does.
that is why like a lot of people, I say this over and over, that have even seen a UFO and don't really tell anybody about it, but they've seen something they couldn't explain that maybe not might not have been Big Brother, the government. You know, it was something else they saw, and they were observing it, and they might have missed. Like, oh, I didn't think I was even watching that thing for 2 or 3 minutes. You know, or
Right.
something like that, just a minute or so. That is contact, and you
Yeah.
find that
And
if you get actually regressed hypnotically and go down to the theta level, what really happened during that minute? Who was on that ship? Were they
mhm.
contacted? Is there a reason why you could see it and they couldn't? Yeah, there's a reason. And you
Right.
don't think, could there be a whole ship of beings, or maybe a whole alliance of beings that is making first contact to just me?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And we don't underestimate, we underestimate what we are as souls, you know.
Right. Yeah.
So,
Because it wasn't until I started talking to you, to your point. I mean, you're responsible for me understanding that I've had contact, but I would never ever have said that I had contact. In fact, when I was telling you, when we first started talking, I said I've never had any contact that I would think I've had. You know, I've done a lot of lucid dreaming. I've done a lot of like we talked about Carlos Castaneda. For years I've done that kind of dream time walking. I'm very conscious that of my dreamscape is completely different from my waking state, and I know that I'm very cognizant of all of that. But I've never felt that I was in. And then when I shared the one of my experiences with you, where I definitely was, going down a back road in Southern Maryland, cornfields on either side, they were high. And I was in my little TR7, just zooming along, playing the music, enjoying myself. And I see this light behind me, and I'm thinking it's like a tractor trailer or something, because the lights were high. They were high enough that you think, oh, it's a big truck or something. I'm not paying any attention. I'm just going. And then and it's funny because when I looked back and saw it, I thought, they're lights. And then within a second, the light was on my back window. And then when I looked up, it veered over the car, up over the cornfields, and then just it was going slow at first, and then it just zoomed. And it was an orb. It was just like a white ball, basically. And I remember thinking, damn, that had to be a UFO. In my mind, that was the first thought. I'm like, God. But until you said that oftentimes first contact is when you have memories of seeing some kind of craft, that definitely is totally unusual. And then I thought, when you were talking about bending time, I never thought that there was I never paid attention to the time period from when the light was way down the road to where it was right up my window, that could have been a contact period, and that I just saw the light there and then saw the light at the end of at the back of because it was, I mean, we know those ships move fast, but it was just like a blink, and it was on my back window from being way down the road, So talking to you sort of made me think about that reality as well, like maybe.
There's two things too, and I would say this: having talked to you a little bit now, you've had a lot of contact. You've told me several things that I think that what happened to you happens to most people. Cognitive dissonance steps
Mm-hmm.
in, and we start explaining it away or dismissing it real quick. And it's
Mm-hmm.
little things like, for example, what you saw. We've got different types of ships. Like I've seen metal ships, like the ones we see, like what they say the Pleiadians are in, or the Galactic Federation and all that, but they're actually metal craft. They look something more like would come from this planet in our future, more metal though based. Then I've seen others that are inorganic, of some type of organic material. All right,
Okay. Uh-huh.
composed with that and a type of metamaterial. All right. Then
Mm-hmm.
there are also plasma ships. They're condensed light ships,
Mm-hmm.
and they're also pure conscious vehicles, which what mystics and practitioners would call our Merkaba body, our dream body.
Okay. I've heard that.
When we go to our next conscious container, that could be some of these ships we're seeing that actually embody other spirits to travel.
Mm-hmm.
You know,
Mm-hmm.
I mean, we're dealing with levels of
Right.
consciousness here and awareness that is so much more advanced than what we're thinking here. We can't even remember what we are as
Mm-hmm.
immortal soul beings that should have soul memories that we can't remember. That's meaning we
Right.
don't know how many times we've been reincarnated here.
This is true.
That's a
Yeah,
problem. That is a problem.
it is
You
a
know, and I know
problem.
everybody wants to say, "Oh, it's a school here. It's a school. You're
Right.
ascending this way. You're learning this and that. You're here for this and that." But they really don't know. They don't really
Yeah.
remember. And these are people that have less life memories, past life memories than me. But they're
Right.
saying these things and buying like what a hypnotist would tell you, auto suggestion.
Right.
And I think you know, and you said some reasons we're here. I think some of us are this awakening. What is showing a shift of consciousness is really, excuse my language, from this being a damn prison planet. And
Yes.
that's what this is on the soul level. Not
See,
everybody here, but out of 10 people, come on, 7 are jacked up. They'll murder
yeah.
you, they'll cheat you, they'll beat you any way, anyhow they can.
Right. I
And
mean, you can just, that's true. You can just see that on the streets. I mean, when you were just saying, I had a mental picture. You're driving along and in traffic, 7 out of 10 people will throw you the bird. And you're like, what did I just do? You know, sometimes you're just like, what just happened? What did I just do? I mean, they're so wound up, you know, and so infiltrated with fear and with all the densities of this planet that, you know, they're just angry all the time. And then to your point, I'm 100% in agreement with you. See, I feel like we are in some kind of jail. I mean, and you know, I think Mother Earth Gaia is beautiful. The planet
mm-hmm,
herself
mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
is beautiful. It's a life force. And when I'm speaking, I'm not speaking about the planet. What I'm speaking of, just from my own, the way I see it and my own experiences, is that we are inhabited some kind of way in an overlay or some kind of dimension that's parallel to Gaia, and we're using her sources, but we're not of her. And it's almost like it is a program, almost like a computer program of some sort. Because see, I never understood. I always believed in reincarnation because I could remember past lives, and in simple ways, like I can go to when I first went off to college, when I went to study in Europe, in London, and I spent a lot of time going around European cities. Like the first time I went to Paris, or the first time I went to Amsterdam, or the first time I went to Milan, or somewhere like that. I didn't use maps. I literally didn't use a map. And people, you know, just people you're with, you, well, how are you going to get around? And I said, you know what? I don't know, but I already know how to get around this city. And I just would start out getting around, walking and going, you know? How do you do that except for you've lived in that city before, you've been there before? What I think is cruel and crude is for us to be reincarnated time and time again, and we don't remember it. How the hell is that a lesson? Because if that were the case, in school we should study all this material, and then our teacher should be able to displace our memory, and now let's take a test. Who does that? So
You
there's
know,
a problem there.
that's just like me being abducted, and these cats. Let's say I was abducted. I've not been. My contacts have not been abduction, but let's say I was abducted. I took a couple of anal probes. They stole a little bit of sperm, and then told me, "Hey, don't worry about it. You agreed to do this. You just don't remember it." I don't think so. I don't think so. You know, you know, and right now, looking at it in that way, you know, and I say this that way, and I don't mean it for everyone here, but if we look at this as a pineal system, all right, I think you can
Right,
take this in a level of almost Star Wars ways, and how they
right,
had the Republic, the Empire, and then they had the Jedi, like the Sith and the Jedi. But you know, the Jedi were in control at one point, and they got
right.
overthrown, all right. But then what they kind of represent is like creative geniuses, nonconformists to this certain Sith type of a system, and
Mm-hmm.
they get okay. Let's just say hypothetically, these type of souls, nonconformists, they get wiped clean,
Mm-hmm.
and sent to a prison planet, wiped clean of soul memories and sent to a prison planet,
Okay.
where also the criminogenic factor of this galactic civilization is sent to the rapists, the killers, the
Oh my God.
insane.
Yeah.
A planet they're wiped clean and sent there also. And everybody kind of is in a recycling uh, machine that just keeps coming back again and again and again. Don't remember, you get out of the body, you get shocked a little bit, get traumatized, and told, hey,
Mhm.
you go back there. You have a special reason to be down there. There's a special
Right.
reason, but you can't remember that either. But you go back there,
Yeah.
and then when you come back here, you're going, oh, I'm here for a reason. And I mean that is true to a certain degree for some of us. I'm not discrediting all that,
Right.
but I'm saying that the dark factor and the prison planet factor and the fact we are immortal soul beings that are doing two things. One is we're suffering from boredom. We know the outcome of everything on the quantum level. If we're in
Right.
God's image, God's true image means we are immortal
Right.
soul beings that can create using matter and energy to create space. Okay, that's what an immortal
Right.
soul being can do. But by the same token, if we know the end of everything, we have to do nothing but trick ourselves to not remembering so that we can learn it all again.
Right.
And then I think there are other forces there very willing to help us and feed on our energy by keeping us asleep and keeping
Right.
us reincarnating here again and again and again.
Right.
For
And
those of us
also,
that can't break it anyway.
yeah,
Sorry.
I think. I mean, I agree with that, and I think that it's really time. I think that we're a lot of us are doing with these kind of programs, the work that you're doing and what have you is beginning. It's like that 101 monkey theory. It's like we have to tip the scale here, because I believe that the conversation is that we don't remember. Because think about it. From the time that now I believe, and it seems like you're in a similar category as myself, is that I don't believe I remember far more of my or I don't even really like to say previous lives, because really to me it really is one stream of consciousness. So I remember more of my pre-birth consciousness than what a lot of people say they remember, number one. And I remember that even from the time I was young, a lot of it didn't make sense. A lot of stuff you're told, or the systems, or the way to do this, and you're supposed to be like this. I questioned it all because it didn't make sense to me. And not that it didn't make sense because I was, was a rule breaker or just trying to not conform. It truly just didn't make sense. And I think I've always been thankful for the fact that my memory maintained itself more dominant, was more dominant to help me do the things that I'm to do here. And I really believe that it was by choice that I came during this time. And that because too much of my memories were not lost. And it's been the most frustrating part for me has been biding my time, sort of waiting for the time to be right to do the things that are needed, that whatever that is. And I'm not to pretend like I know what it is and all that. But I mean, I have some ideas, but you know what I'm saying? And I think that more people are really in fact like that. But and I think the people who are wakening up, some people say, oh, I just woke up with 9/11, or I just woke up 2 years ago. And I find those same people, I start talking to them and I say, well, when you were in your teens, what did you think about such and such and such? And they'd say, well, I had a problem with that. In fact, I was always in trouble. And I take, just like you took me back with the whole idea of contact when I didn't think I have it. And I can walk people back to pretty early in their lives where they can see, wow, you're right. I'm like, no, you didn't just wake up with 9/11. That might have been the kind of crescendo moment. But if you really do justice to yourself and go back, you'll see that you have been in this consistent strain of consciousness that has kind of gotten you to this moment. And I think that that's an important thing for people to really start thinking about, because if you do, that's where your power is. You can start putting all those dots together and figure out what's going on for you right now. And it's like, to your point about the prison planet, it's like those people who are in prison, who are successful in prison, take that time and they read books, or they study languages, or they write books, and they do things with that time that's significant. So when they get out of prison, they really haven't lost time, and they can kind of move forward and make up for whatever they, and move forward and do some stuff with it. Where some other blokes just sit around and don't do anything the whole time. They just there, and then the door opens and they get to walk out into the, the daylight again. So it's sort of like that. It's what you're doing with your time while you're here. I don't know if that makes sense.
Yeah, to a certain degree.
Yeah. So I think that, so part of what you're saying is, one of the things that I wanted us to get across in this broadcast with your experiences and what you're sharing is the idea that for people to kind of wake up to the notion of what contact is. And you were talking about contact, and then you were talking about something about on our private conversations about screen memories. So I want you to talk about that, what that's like. And for the purpose of more people maybe beginning to identify with the fact that far more people have had contact and it hasn't been negative, and maybe it's serving a greater purpose, and maybe getting in contact with what that purpose is could be for the good of where we're all trying to go. So I know there's a lot there, but I know you know what I'm saying.
Well, I'll tell you what, as concerning screen memories, right now we live in an illusion that makes us very susceptible to holographic technology. All right. And when I say screen memories, a lot of these people, not all, but a lot of people right now, I think a lot of what we would call negative inorganic beings, dark spirits, whatever you want to call them, all right, that have the ability to give us a screen memory, almost like a hypnotic auto-suggestion, using holographic projection technology sometime to create an extraterrestrial abduction scenario, all right, for really what is demonic possession, more or less, all right? And I think a great deal of that right now, I say that due to the amount of people that are getting attacked by these shadow beings and other beings that are much greater than just the shadows that we see in our peripheral vision. I'm hearing a lot of that right now. So, and sadly, I hate to say it, but if you come up against one of these inorganic beings, one of these demons that is billions of years old, and it hates your very awareness and wants to eat your luminosity, you better be careful. Right? A lot of people giving advice, say, "Oh, just shoot them with bolts of light and stuff," and they've not really battled any of those beings. They battled the little ones you see out of our corner of our eye. They battled those, but they haven't battled the ones that are millions of years old. They come before you, and you say your little couple religious words, and they laugh at you and say, "Hey, that's a good story. We're not going anywhere. Your awareness is ours." Then what do? You're in for the battle of your life. Yeah, it's not. You know what I mean? I think I just say that because I see so many people giving like bad advice. They know no more than you or I, and they can't consciously remember one of these entities like that. You know what I mean? But I think anyway. Excuse me. Going back to what you're saying.
No, go ahead. I mean, that's okay because you're making a good point there. Go ahead.
Yeah, it's just the fact that we're in a prison planet, but we've got these predators around us, and for us being humans to think that we have no predators because we live in our concrete jungles is a mistake. You spoke of Carlos Castaneda earlier. He called them, or as his teacher did, the flyers. Flyers. Yeah, and those type of shadows. But I mean, nonetheless, the ones that are out after our life memories, after our awareness, after our luminosity. All right. But a lot of that can be used for screen memories for extraterrestrial contact. That keeps us looking out there, looking to the skies, and they're going to come in here and get us. And it stops you from looking at the demons right here on this planet. Some of them that are inorganic, non-physical, like our first cousins, disincarnate, but they're very close to us, and they know just how to psychologically trick us.
Right.
Especially we're so busy down here paying our bills and raising our kids, we don't,
you're not paying attention to anything. And that's a good point because, I mean, and that's one of the things that, I mean, I've always been very cautious about. I mean, I'm very interested in, off-planetary life and, UFOs and all that, because I just happen to believe that it all is real. And I believe that it's serving some sort of purpose. But at the same time, I'm not going out and trying to make anything happen either, because first of all, it just doesn't make sense to me. Number one, I'm ill-equipped to even know what I'm summing up, And number two, I think that, like you said, you know, those same people are saying, shoot beams of light and rays of love to these reptilian guys and stuff like that. They don't even know how to say hello to their neighbors when they walk out the house. You can't even, you know, you can't even deal with human beings, right, physical in front of your face successfully. How are you going to be sending some beams of light? You don't even know if you really got a beam of light. You just, it's in your mind, maybe, conceptually. And that stuff to me is just not adequate. It's one thing if you've actually had your own inherent experience where you were walking or dreamscaping or something like that, and in that reality, you actually had a physical experience with fiending off or understanding your power in that realm. And maybe that, but just to listen to someone else give you advice, I think was what to your point is. And then you just think that's the way to do it. That just doesn't make sense.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. And you know, to look for example, something I've used this a few times. When I was studying, you know, like to get my degree, I did it on serial killers, and that was like back in the 90s. But you know, Jeffrey Dahmer did an interview with Diane Sawyer, and I consider her to be a really good journalist. She's very detached and unemotional when she interviews, and he was very meek that whole interview. But like midways towards the end, he said, you know, everybody asked if I'm schizophrenic and why I did it, and he looked up at the camera and he goes, I did it because it felt good, and if you let me go, I will do it again and again and again. That is a dark soul telling you what it likes, what vibration it likes, what feels good, and what it's going to go back to when its body's done, when its body dies. I mean, and that being, that demon, whatever you want to call these souls, are able to incarnate through the cycle just like you and I are here.
Right.
So, you know, so sometimes I'm more looking at the beings here that are walking around in these bodies like you and I, that are complete demons, demonic.
Right. Exactly.
I mean, so that's kind of, you know, where that kind of ties into here is. It's right there. You know what I mean? So that just ties in so much of this. And I'm speaking on this because right now I'm seeing so much dark stuff going on. People tripping out on implants. They're implanted. They said they're going to help me with my implants, but they implanted me. And, you know, I mean, people are tripping out, man.
Yeah, they really are.
Yeah. And it's just the whole dark thing. And the fact of thinking that maybe some of our souls are tagged when we come in here so that we are more susceptible to holographic technology, more susceptible to auto-suggestion. And a lot of these dark forces, these dark beings, they start off as negative thought forms.
Yes.
And they get negative thought forms. They start generating energy within us, and then they use our own pineal gland as a wormhole to manifest into the third dimension, and they start causing crap in your life. Wow. Normally financial stress, normally.
Right.
You know what I mean? Yeah. Or people acting funny around you, people you love going off on you for no reason. You know, I mean, little things like that. So that's just, you know, something to be aware of, and just how much we live kind of darkly here in a predatorial universe. Right. And I think being beings of light, immortal souls, it's foolish of us to not think that when every ecosystem we see on Earth, natural ecosystem on Earth, ecosystem is predatorial in nature. What makes you think the universe is not the same type of organization? I know it's not the love and light everybody wants to hear, but I think it's much more a realistic perspective, you know?
I mean, I'm all for it. I mean, you know, and I always say that, you know, I'd much rather confront the truth or look at things more squarely, because then you can have a positive effect upon them, because at least now you feel that you can control something, or not control it, but you can begin to approach for your own life or for whatever you're trying to do, a series of solutions as a result. But if you don't even look at what the possible problem could be or anything like that, well, then you're just leaving yourself wide open. And to your point about implants, now I don't know that they exist, and I don't know that they don't. I'm in the middle. I listen to a lot of people who talk about them, other people who remove them. I'm kind of like this about it. and you and I talked about this before offline. If I don't trust you, I'm not even going to go to get a pedicure. Okay. Not to mention you messing with my auric field and my pineal gland and all this other kind of nonsense. No way. So first of all, I say doing it over online and with over this and all of that, if you don't have like a connection or a real trust with that person, right off, that's just something I wouldn't do, you know, number one. Number two, me personally, I feel that I need to know that I got an implant, just like the same way I know I got a broken foot, that my eyes hurting. You know, when you go to the doctors, you know, you're going because you specifically have evidence that there's something that needs to be repaired. So to that point, it seems like you should know you have implants. Like, you know, you should be able to go to someone and say, look, I know it feels like it's here, it's there, or it's prohibiting me from doing this or doing that. Or I'm having this experience and that experience and I wasn't having it previously. I mean, you know what I'm trying to say? Not just going to someone and saying, hey, you think I got some implants? You know what I mean? Like, really? You know, and then you're going to let them do something? I mean, I think that people just have to wise up. I'm not saying that it's not true. And I'm not saying that there aren't credible techniques out there to deal with them. So no disrespect to anyone who really has that down. But to the people who are waking up or remembering themselves or remembering experiences and stuff, you know, I caution people just to run off to the first person or the first thing or the first whatever, thinking that this is your way of maybe connecting on a deeper level or fixing your life to this point for whatever reason that, you know, maybe you've had sucky relationships or something. Maybe you thought it was because of this implant. Oh, let me go get rid of this implant. Maybe that's why I've been having bad relationships or something. I mean, I just think it's important for people to see things, you know.
Well, if that's the case, I should have been, if it's about relationships, I should have been implant removal 1,000 years ago. Then I'm terrible at them. Lord, I wish it was that easy. I'm like, oh, I only suck at relationships because I was implanted. It doesn't. No,
right,
no
exactly.
It's convenient though, eh?
Yeah, I think it's more so because we're unique. And people have a tendency to it's a hard time to deal with uniqueness.
Yes, yes.
I tell myself anyway. So a little bit more about, you know, when we were talking the other day offline, we were talking about some of the, you spoke a little bit earlier about the different type of beings that they are, you know, conscious, you know, beings of consciousness, non-humanoid, things like that, plasma beings and what have you. You were also talking about things like silicon beings and things. Can you kind of get a little deeper into how some of these beings seem to manifest and what you think, and also the various dimensions that you feel that you've been in contact with? That's what I want to talk about as well.
You know, from younger years until just recently, I got no names whatsoever when I asked. And I spent a lot of times interrogating my guides about who are you, where are you from? And I didn't get any of the convenient answers you hear so much right now, which would be ones like the Pleiadians, the Arcturians, you know, there's just a few of them, the Syrians. You hear about these all the time. And that's true because we're dealing with the galactic neighborhood, all right? But the beings I was dealing with were telling me to look out 900 billion light years, all right? Galaxies out there. And then they're talking about go beyond E-space. That's like 1982, 83. I didn't know what the hell that meant. You know what I mean? Something we call kind of similar to nanospace now. But what they're saying, you will understand, start with the third and fourth planets outside of Pluto. And I'm kind of telling them back, there's no such thing. They said, no, your technology hasn't discovered it, so it won't make sense to you either. But they're jump-off points. We have bases there that are jump-off points into your solar system because of how dense it is there. It's hard for us.
Oh, wow.
So, so in that way, and now around 2004 or 5, they found something called trans-Neptunian objects, which is another Kuiper belt that exists outside of Pluto there. And there was no such thing when I was a kid and I was being told this by these beings, all right? Another
Right.
reason why I'll say often there's no Nibiru, but there are other things out there that are already charted that they know the orbit of. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I want to come back to that too.
Yeah.
The
It,
Nibiru.
yeah. But these beings anyway. So that was part of it there dealing with. So when you go that far out, when I started finding some of these galaxies they're talking about, I'm looking at things like a Bell 2256. It's 900 billion light years out. It's near the Big Bang. So
Mm.
so that for me, it took it to another level. Why sometimes they're out of phase, and the only way you can get here is nearly as a thought form. It's not a
Mm-hmm.
technology way; it's a conscious thing. And they start telling me, dimensions. Go for the 16th dimension upwards.
Mm.
And I almost wanted to pull the Flash Gordon on them. Everyone knows there's only 5 dimensions, but I mean, I was just a kid
I
though.
know
I mean, they were blasting me up. I mean, it made me start liking things as a kid, like Doctor Who and Star Trek and science fiction, things that I could try to correlate with what they were telling me because I couldn't
right.
understand a lot of it. You know what I mean? So,
Right.
but
So
yeah,
tell me what you found out about Nibiru, because you were saying that some of your contacts sort of, got into that you were saying that there's no Nibiru. So
that's crap. I mean, I hate to
tell me
say it,
why.
but there's a thing called gravitational perturbance, all right, that would show if there was any body in our solar system like twice the size of Jupiter, like 6 times of Earth, whatever Zechariah Sitchin was saying, all right. And in
Mm-hmm.
that way, I think that's feeding this program, all right. Now there are the trans-Neptunian objects, like I just said, there are bases on them, and some of them come into our solar system. They come kind of close. They're in that out of the Oort cloud is what they're coming out of there. But I mean, they would have detected this other one. And I'm sorry, I don't think there's any one organization that is controlling all the amateur astronomers across the world that are dying to prove this object exists. They just found
Right.
something else big, but then again, it's another trans-Neptunian object. It is not what Zechariah Sitchin was saying, which he was just describing from Sumerian text, which is
Mm-hmm.
interesting because we never go into African text. We just everything begins then with Sumeria, obviously.
Right.
Anyway,
And interestingly enough, there are I came across someone else, another gentleman, I can't think of his name now, but he's done a whole lot of work on the some of the scrolls. I want to say the Nag Hammadi text, but I could be wrong about that. But he actually said that that there were caves, that they found caves in Africa. I forget which part of Africa that predate the Sumerian, but that referred to this sort of same planetary phenomenon that Sitchin was saying was going on in Sumeria.
mm-hmm.
So I guess my thinking is, and my question to you is, first of all, so you were saying that you don't believe that there's a Nibiru based upon just your understanding of gravitational perturbance?
Mm-hmm. Yes, that'd be the main thing right there. I
And what
mean,
is
that would influence the body so much in this solar system. They would know. There's nothing out there. I've heard other astronomers, like people from JPL and all over, saying there's nothing out there doing that right now. That's showing that whatsoever. And
so why
number
do you
two,
think, what do you think this Nibiru, okay, go ahead. Number two is what?
just that I think that when we deal with the whole concept of who the Anunnaki were, I believe they were reptiles.
Uh-huh.
Okay, they were scaled, and we have another factions that came here that I remember in my past life memory that were black, and no
Mm-hmm.
one wants to admit that blacks with long, elongated craniums.
Mm-hmm.
They did not have bodies till we got close to the solar system. So that's things there that just doesn't, brought up very much, and it's kind
Right.
of overrated. And everything seems to begin and end with the Anunnaki, who it's proven to be scaled. All
Right.
right. And I think they were deceivers. They were turning people into for mining gold and all that. I don't doubt that. I think that's true, but I think that's part of the war that went on here. A war between
Right.
them and the beings that were called the sons of God. And they're
Right.
demonstrated on all the first and second dynasty of Egypt depictions and
Mm-hmm.
hieroglyphs. You see them.
Right.
The
Right.
elongated cranium always
That's
brings them
yeah.
out. And those were descendants. We were descendants from Mu at that time, because Mu was the first place we had inhabited, and
Right.
then that was destroyed, several cataclysms, and then Egypt. And everywhere the sons of God went, you have these structures, these pyramid structures, to protect the technology. The
Right.
technology that was in them could convert matter into energy and energy into matter.
I'm with you on that. And so part of my thinking too, with the idea of talking about Nibiru, is why is it that you think, well, so what do you think the whole hype is with it? Why are we making up this whole Nibiru? More fear, just more reasons for the dark forces here, or the shadow governments, whatever, to be able to have, you know, geo weather technology and stuff. Oh, that tsunami came because Nibiru came close or something. I mean, what, you know, Agenda 21, I'm thinking.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. I mean, there's all sorts. There's so many conspiracy stuff that I get. You know what I mean? I don't go too deep into it. But I mean, just that body doesn't exist. And if it does, it will be proven. It should have been long proven by our science right now. Like I just heard somebody else saying, oh, there's one out there now. And even Littleton Howell was talking about it. But not seeing it. Sorry, that does not happen as far as I know. But I think that could there be some type of a mothership out there that comes around every now and again? That's different.
Right.
You know
exactly.
what I mean? That's different, but that's not some natural body that's a part of our solar system that floats around every, whatever they said, 50,000 years, 1,400 years or whatever. That's just too much
actually,
out.
In Stitchen's work, what he called Nibiru, he actually said that he felt it was a gigantic mothership. That's what he was saying in most of his work, that he didn't think it was a planet, interestingly enough. And that he thought that based on his interpretation of the Sumerian text, that they were more benevolent, number one, and that they were more connected with ancient Egypt and what had gone on. When they came back around that next time, they were responsible for trying to build that culture, you know. And so, I mean, I've done a lot of reading on his work.
That's the 12th planet, right? That's what he says in the 12th planet, right?
Right. And then his all the way down through his later work, he kind of sticks to that. And so it's interesting that I always, just from having followed his work and just sort of what made sense to me in terms of ancient Egypt, I always thought that Nibiru was more of a spacecraft, not a planet. Now, it didn't make sense to me, this whole idea of it only comes around every, 3,600 years and all that kind of stuff. But anyway, the jury is still out on that. But everybody's still hyping Nibiru. It's on its way, and it's going to be a cataclysm inside of 10 years. I don't buy it. But back to your point about the Egyptians, what I thought was interesting, when I was in college, I studied African American history and African archaeology, where it was sort of a double major thing, and I really was fascinated with. And my teacher was one of my professor was one of the foremost people in his field on the Benin, the people of Benin. And the people of Benin, there was an ancient African culture that was civilized. It had city, it had houses, had streets, had city centrals. And in fact, when early Rome and what have you was being built, some of those architects came over and associated themselves with some of the Benin, and they came back over and actually helped to build and structure ancient Rome. This has been proven through archaeological digs and what have you. But what was always so fascinating to me is, how do you take the continent of Africa, and now it's Africa, plain and simple, but the whole northern part of it you cut off and you put into the European division, so that you make Egypt, Morocco, countries like that, they're considered European countries, And I always, to your point about them, really being brown-skinned, and based on your experiences, melanin dominant extraterrestrials with elongated heads, that will make far more sense than trying to make them European, considering all of what's happened there in Northern Africa, historically. I mean, how do you do that? That used to always fascinate me. And actually, even when you go to the Pentagon, I was in DC. I lived there for a long time, and I actually went to the Pentagon. And when you go there and you walk, each nation is represented. And actually, Morocco and, you know, Egypt, that whole area is actually in the European division, and all the other countries on the continent are in the African division. So it's still like that. It's amazing. But but to your point about these melanin dominant beings, I always sort of felt that that was what was going on in Egypt.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, all over the world. Actually, I mean, you've got the Olmecs, you've got different groups that were melanin dominant that just have been kind of exercised from history, more or less. You know what I mean? Because no one wants to talk about really where the pyramids come from. Where did that technology come from? What were they descended of? It was Mu. It was long before that. You know what I mean? To the point to where I can tell you now why I was born with past life memories is because we encoded genetically our own melanin so that we could reawaken in the bodies of our descendants to make up for the karmic debt that was stained on us. So that's why I can remember some things. When I started getting to things like
wait, say that again. You lost me there. Say that all again. You lost me. Break it down again. So what was the memory? And then in code, say that again. I can't even repeat it.
Okay, back then, what we did was, as being geneticists, all right, type 1 civilization, more genetics than we are capable of right now, as far as eugenics go. So what we did was encoded our own melanin so that we could reawaken in the bodies of our descendants. Therefore, that's why I have past life memories. I was born with them. It's a genetic thing. It's truly and when I started dealing with things like the work of Dr. Richard King, he wrote a book called African Biological Psychology, Psychiatry. I'm sorry, the first one, the Melanin, the Key to Freedom. All right, but what he deals with is a thing called Black Dot Theory, which is a way of using the symbolism of the Eye of Horus, which is pure melanin, to actually use certain types of pranayama breaths and things to awaken the race memory. Okay, the genetic memory through the melanin. I tried doing that, and it increased my past life memories like triple fold. Like I needed a lot of help with that anyway, but it definitely did something, and that's why I knew. Okay, so that's why I can remember these things so vividly.
Wow, that's interesting.
Yeah, it takes eugenics all to a different era. And looking at the past, looking at the past, some things of Star Trek really shouldn't be looked at such a joke. When they talk about Khan, the original Khan, the original Star Trek was called Space Seed, and it was Ricardo Montalban, Mr. Worf, that racist. Anyway, it was bad. He was the bad one. Anyway, the plane. He was talking about, I hope there are no black people on that plane. Anyway.
He's crazy. I know that's right.
Yeah, but yeah. So but Khan was eugenics. He was a tyrant, but they were eugenics. They were bred to be physically superior, but they were also hungry and tyrants. But that happened once in the past, and we look at things like what's called Set and some of the other, like Akhenaten and these other pharaohs that appear to be some type of hybrids. A lot of people say they were part alien. No, they were part sons of God and part that hybrid project between the sons of God and the sons of men, which had Cro-Magnons, basically. And that's what we see that now. Why some races carry so many Neanderthal genes and others don't. It's not everybody has all the Neanderthal genes. It wasn't absorbed by the entire human race.
Wow. That's fascinating. Wow.
Yeah.
I mean, I have to really, I'm gonna look up, what was the name of the book you just said? African
Biological Psychiatry by Dr. Richard King. And the other one he wrote is called Melanin, the Key to Freedom. And they go very well on how to actually awaken the race memory.
How do you spell his last name?
King.
Oh, King. Okay. I'll put that up in the notes, on the show, because I mean, that's interesting. That's a whole nother direction there. I like that though. So I guess, the other thing I wanted to ask you about your experiences, Barry, is, I don't know that you answered this, or did I even ask it? do you feel that you're complete and obviously total recovery here? I mean, at least physically in terms of your mind and what we can see here on the screen. Do you feel that that was connected to any of your contact experience? Or, I mean, what do you credit you being here today?
You
And
know,
that sort of medical recovery. I'm speaking more of the medical recovery, you know, part of it.
I think there's several factors. I think what you're asking is something that I actually talked to a lady by the name of Mary Rodwell about. Her and I spoke several times, but she talks about a certain type of lifetime experiencer like me that have these tragic life, like near death life experiences, near death experiences. Sorry, and how sometimes these beings can stop when they're in these accidents. They can stop things and remove them from the accident for just a second, bend the space time continuum, put them back 5 seconds later, and that way they have these weird type of healings and things like that. So for all I know, I may fit that parameters. Sorry.
Right.
There's right now the Free organization, which is supposed to be collecting data from around the world of experiencers. They're doing a lot of connecting near death experience and extraterrestrial contact. People that have both. So there's more than just me. You know what I mean? Yeah.
Right.
So does that kind of answer what you might be saying a little bit?
That's you. That's like the answer.
Yeah, like I said, the angels were different that I saw. So I mean, and I know they definitely had something to do with my survival. And when I say that, I think that any more pure God or pure love energy than what I got from them would turn me to a sender. You know what I mean? You don't think that love could hurt, but that frequency of love actually can. But they were channeling that type of love. And I think all the people that actually did come by and see me and took time out of their day to hug, to pray for me. I think they were kind of channeling that energy down so that I could use it to heal. I honestly believe that.
Wow, I think so. I definitely believe that. Well, I mean, this has been really, this has been a really good, I mean, every time I talk to you, you just talk about so many things that I have not even, I mean, I'm here writing notes. I'm supposed to be like doing this show. I'm here like getting a lesson. I'm writing all this. I've got to go check this stuff out. And I hope that our listeners are doing a similar thing, and that understanding that this whole connection is so complex. And, you know, you sort of think of one thing as I'm an experiencer or whatever, you know, I've had contact, you know, I'm, you know, into metaphysics. I'm like, in my case, you know, I'm a Reiki master. I kind of, my thing is connecting with energy and color, what have you. But these things are so all interconnected. I mean, like, you know, we started off talking about your experiences. We ended up in Egypt, you know, talking about, you know, so.
No, they're not the separate things we think they are always. You know what I mean? They're not the classifications that we think they are sometimes. You know what I mean?
Right. Yeah, exactly.
And awareness.
Exactly. So anyway, so that probably, this has been a lot to think about there. Is there anything else that you would like to, you know, put forward in terms of what your message is specifically, or do you have some groups or something that you're doing that you like to put out to, you know, to people, way to contact?
Well, you know, one thing is just I don't want everybody to think that it's all negative, the prison planet thing. I don't mean it like that. There's definitely some light here. We've got so many people that are doing not just what they call light work, but are good people trying to spread love that never make it to the media. And that has to be focused on a little bit. And the fact that we do have a chance to ascend out of here. You know what I mean? Through probably the natural cycles of death. So I want to think that it's all negative when I say stuff like that. Okay, not everything is doom and gloom.
No, I don't.
Yeah, people can get a hold of me through Facebook. Just my name, Barry Littleton. If you send me a friend request, if I can see some of your pictures, I don't get a bad energy. I'll most likely request. And I'm trying to communicate with people, but I'm finding that it's really hard, and I'm falling behind, and a lot of people getting pissed off at me. But I'm trying, I swear.
Well,
you can find me or on YouTube. Nightcloud. You can type in Nightcloud and Barry, and I've got a YouTube channel I started probably about a few weeks ago, and there's some few videos on there, the interviews I've done, and also just some things that are connected to experiences that I've kind of had that I can just verify that have some validity. You know what I mean? Try to keep it real a
Wow.
little bit and more tangible if I can. So
Okay. Well, I'll definitely put those links at the bottom of this video. And well, thanks a lot, Barry. Thanks for sharing. And I hope that, you know, that I asked intelligent questions, because every time you hit me, it's like I'm like thinking I'm kind of out of my league, but at the same time I'm
oh
learning,
no,
and I'm
no,
so
no, no.
fascinated by this that, you know, I appreciate, you
Yeah, no,
know,
you know, we all have just have different experiences. We're making a tapestry. You know what I mean?
yeah,
There's no different of any way. It's just you bring things to the table I don't know about, don't understand. That's just how it makes this whole thing work, and then it presents a tapestry that the whole community is putting together that's involved with this. It's really kind of
yeah,
cool. It gives me hope. You know what I mean? It really
yeah.
does.
And that's what I want this show to be all about. You know, Circle Healing Network is really about the energy of the circle, the energy of, you know, the wholeness, completeness. And, you know, what I'm hoping is sometimes, you know, I bring on difficult subjects onto the show, or different subjects and different points of view, but it's all with people that I feel are still coming at it from a standpoint of, you know, just love and respect. I think respect is huge, you know, and, you know, we all have our various experiences, but, you know, so many people are hearing so much. And I just hope that, you know, these programs will fall upon people's ears and consciousness that can say, wow, okay, got it. You know, I see this. I've been feeling similar things. And, you know, it's like that old Clint Eastwood movie, The Good, the Bad, and the Ugly. I mean, you know, we got the good, we got the bad, and we got the ugly. I mean, that's just what we have. Now we got to deal with it. How do you make it a positive? You know what I mean? How can
Yeah.
we, because that's what we're all about doing right now. We're all about trying to come together to the middle and make it and ascend, you know, like you were saying, just ascend off this planet and ascend with and help the planet from a lot of the abuse and stuff that's going on. So again, I thank you for your time and your energy and your wisdom. And I look forward to us talking more.
Oh, thank you for having me. I really enjoyed it. I really did. I hope I answered your questions. I feel like I was all over the board, kind of. So I apologize for
No,
that.
you were excellent, because I'm all over the board. So you probably are looking at me thinking, okay, she just asked. No, but I like the way you just kind of just talk on a strand of consciousness, because that's what it's about. And that's, to me, where all the things start linking together. You start seeing that this contact over here has something to do with this over here. And so sometimes, like you and I were talking, I totally didn't expect to come walking away with thinking that I had a contact experience. But because we started talking about something else, we were talking about lucid dreaming and Carlos Castaneda. And in that, and me sharing some stuff with you, say, hey, Robin, I think that might have been a contact experience. You know, I didn't know. So we have to approach it like that, more synergistically. And then, you know, we kind of come to that place of the whole, and hopefully that helps people. So again, thank you, Barry. I appreciate it all. And
Thank you for
we'll
having me.
talk again soon. Yeah,
God bless. Thank you very much.
definitely. Bless you. Take care.
Thank you. Bye bye.